Welcome to Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast. I'm your host, Luke Darnell. This man really needs no introduction. He's won everything in competition barbecue, been featured on BBQ Pitmasters, and is widely considered one of the best people to meet, and not just in barbecue. This week, it is our esteemed pleasure to have Tuffy Stone, the professor, pitmaster of pool smoke, on the podcast. I think you'll enjoy this interview, getting to know one of the legends of barbecue and hear his fantastic story. So please join me in welcoming Tuffy Stone. We have the pleasure today of sitting down with Mr. Tuffy Stone of Cool Smoke. How are you doing, buddy?
Doing all right, man. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for taking the time to be on here today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. How's life been treating you during the pandemic?
Oh, it's been a real kick in the pants. It's we were talking before we went live. It's been cooking for a living since 1987, and I always thought that that skill set would be like being a plumber or a carpenter. But this pandemic has shown me that that's not true, and so it's been tough. I lost my dad back at right at the start of it all. So that we're going to have our service for him, me and my sisters, this Sunday. So we haven't even been able to have a proper tribute to Dad. So anyways, I call it cooking my way through COVID. We're sitting in this little place right now called the Westover, and every Saturday and Sunday I fire up my Jambo. Occasionally I got to fire it up in the middle of the week too, and just been cooking these Sunday suppers. Take these whole chickens and brine them, air chill them overnight, season them the next day with just salt, fresh cracked pepper, granulated garlic, light a fire, think of Dad, make this brown butter. Anyways, try and just cook these perfect Sunday supper chickens, and Luke, it's like it's like therapy, but it's like there's something about these chickens for me that's really important. Richmond community has been very impacted by COVID, and the people coming out are afraid. And so when I'm cooking these chickens, it's like, can I cook a chicken that's delicious enough when you have it that make you come back and get it again? It's like it's been I just was down teaching a class with Melissa Cookston, and Mississippi in that area they're not afraid. They're going out and they're eating a lot. But my community here in Richmond's been very, very beat up by this whole pandemic. My catering company, which we started in 1993, I got people who've been there 20 years, and it's been tough. But I just got my first vaccination, and my wife just got her second, and I know you just got yours. Hopefully, we're coming around the corner.
Yeah, it's been tough, and I also experienced the loss right before COVID. My mom passed away.
I'm so sorry.
I know that every time I put a stick in my Jambo, I think about your dad. And I know that there's a lot of people out there that have the same sentiment.
I gave my dad his first iPhone, and my dad couldn't hear very well. In fact, to the point where I could lose my voice trying to talk to him driving to a contest, because I'd have to repeat myself and get louder and louder and louder. But when I gave him his first iPhone, it was such a valuable tool for my dad. In some respects, it was like one of the best things he ever got, and it was probably also one of the worst things he ever got, because we can spend so much time on our smartphones. But it was such a great way for my dad to communicate, because now he could text, and so he could correspond with somebody without having to listen. But he also found Facebook through that gift, and in the beginning he'd be like, "Do you know this person? They're asking to be friends." He'd be very very suspicious. But over time he got to where he had friends all over the world through barbecue and Facebook. And when he passed away, I felt like I needed to let the barbecue community know, and obviously social media was a good way to let people know. And at the same time, there was so much heavy stuff going on in this world, and I was like, man, I don't want to add another layer of sadness to what everybody's going, but I felt like I thought about it, I was like, I gotta do it. And but my dad was like, if we would go to a contest and have good results, he would put a post on Facebook, and then he would like read all those results on the way back from a contest, and it brought him so much joy. So I don't know if they have Facebook in heaven or not, but if they do, I know that he was very touched. I know I was touched by all the people that expressed their love for Dale.
Yeah, he's truly one of the barbecue greats out there, and I know I learned a lot from him just at the class or whatever, and watching him run the fire and everything. That was, it was always you see George out there with the sticks, and it was like, man, this is what I want to learn how to do. And he will always be missed, and he'll always have a place in everybody's heart. Well, one of the things that we like to talk about on here are superstitions.
Yeah.
And things. Do you have a set routine that you do every week when you have a contest?
It's so funny. You talk about, so I have a collection of good luck charms. Some have been retired because they lost their ability to work. Good luck charms for me, like the first time I cooked Memphis in May, we went down there and I was with Pat Burke and the team, and we were eating in a Mexican restaurant down in Memphis, and I was out there in the parking lot looking for pennies head side up, and I found 3, and we ended up, that was 2010, and we ended up winning shoulders. The first time we'd ever cooked Memphis in May. So I have a strong belief in good luck charms, and I used to have one of the first designs for Cool Smoke. This goes back a long time ago. I had a red T-shirt. It's worn out. I still have it, but one of the things I like to do. I don't think I finished my point. Good luck charms for me are this. I like to go to a contest with good wood, clean pits, sharp knives, fresh rub, good meat. I like to get there and know that I have everything that I need that's capable of having good results. But good luck charms for me are like this idea that there's something out of our control. We can go and we can cook great meat, and we can put our best meat in the box, and we can do all the things that we need to do. But there's still something out there that's a power greater than ourselves that we don't control that, and so I think these good luck charms for me are just awareness of that. I can try my best and I can do my best, but it doesn't mean that I'll achieve the best that day. Something that I've been doing since the beginning is I like to go around and wish teams good luck, and I don't think that's superstitious. It's something that's important to me, and then if you get to like the American Rule in the Open and there's 550 teams, you really can't go wish all 550 teams good luck. Oh, she'll be late for chicken. So I'll do a post or something like that to wish people luck. And I don't know, this a long time ago. I think I'd already gotten a grand, but I went to a contest, and all like the bigwigs from the barbecue world were at this contest, and I had to leave after brisket turned in. And so they were texting me the results because I had to get back to Richmond to cater. I had to drive from North Carolina, and I had to cater that night. They were texting me the results, or I don't remember what the places were. Byron Chisholm butt rub, he won the contest. A lot of bulls there, smoking triggers, and Jack's Old South, and all these legendary teams were there. But they were texting me our results, and we ended up getting reserve. And it was like I was so elated and so excited, but the next contest that we went to, I think, was in Maryland, and we never got out of our seat one time. And my mom called me up and she said, "Tuffy, I hear you didn't do so good this weekend." And I said, "No, ma'am." And she said, "Well, last weekend it was your turn, and this weekend it was somebody else's," and that just always really stuck with me, and you got, I think as competition barbecuers, it's really exciting when we do well. But I think you need to be able to take your licks too. I think that's really important. And so for me, going around and wishing teams good luck is just this kind of, I think I got my mom's words in my head when I'm doing that. It's like I think if it was the same winner every time over and over again, we'd probably go look at other hobbies or different things.
Find something different to do. No, that's one of the things that I've been doing this 10 years now. And, sometimes you're the bug, sometimes you're the windshield.
That's it.
And just be grateful for the success you get. And so you're one of the most successful people in barbecue, both commercially and in competition-wise. When you hear the word successful in terms of barbecue, who comes to your mind? Who first pops into your mind?
Oh man, I mean, I assume that question is driven around competition.
Yeah.
Oh man, I mean, there's so many people to put on a list. I mean, I don't know if you've had the pleasure to be able to have any conversations with Pat Burke or not, but
yeah.
Pat Burke's like, if you hear how many contests he's won, I mean, and I watched that dude one time. We were filming BBQ Pitmasters, and it was in Murfreesboro, and he was cooking on a cinder block pit, and he was burning wood down to coals, and he would, take that shovel but I watched him do his shoulders presentation for finals, and he was like watching a car dealer in Vegas, man. He was so smooth, and I had conversations with Pat about because he cooked his Tower Rock, but then he also cooked with Mike Mills and Apple City, I think and when Mike and Pat would cook and do their presentations, Pat said they were so good at it that it's like they would watch the judge's eyes, and when one of the judge's eyes went to go look somewhere else, the other person would step in, and they would, but he just won. As Tower Rock, he won so many contests. Golly, laudable. And back in 2006, Mike Davis, when he pulled in with his motor coach, you knew you were cooking for second place in KCBS. If you look at IBCA, you look at Ronnie and Michelle Wade and the record that they had for so long. Hell, I mean, the maker of our pits, Jamie Gear. Sorry about that, folks.
That's okay.
We're here in the restaurant. We're closed, so call back on Wednesday. Rod Gray was, I think he was Team of the Year in 2009, KCBS. Chris Lilly. I mean, golly, that dude, I don't think he's taught a class yet towards competition barbecue, but I know if he ever does, that class will fill up quick.
I got to tell you, Chris Lilly, the one thing that I've learned from Chris Lilly is attitude. That guy has an amazing attitude. Every time I talk to him, he is interested in what you're doing and just smile on his face, and I really believe that's from barbecue.
He's just a Southern gentleman. He's super, super positive, real attention to detail. We were cooking the King of the Smokers one year beside each other, and he had forgotten to bring his brush, and he asked me, he said, do you have a brush I can borrow? And I was like, well, I got it here, and it was a silicone brush. He's like, oh, no, I need a bristle brush, and I like, he and I are similar. When we cook the Invitational and the Open, we both do the same thing after the Invitational. We clean our pits and get them ready for round two. But Lily's a soldier. Some of these, I'm not on the circuit as much like you are right now. I'll probably, the last contest I cooked was probably the Jack. It was. And so I didn't cook a contest last year. Yeah, I've been down to about 5-7 contests a year. You're going to cook next week, or this week.
Yeah.
This week. And you're going to have all the heavy hitters there, it sounds like. I mean, Darren's going to be there, and Brad's going to be there, or maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
we're trying to talk him out of
it. It's a long ways to go. Well, he cooks on drums. He can probably just fly in and bar stuff.
That's his plan, I think. But right now, he's just cooking unbelievable food. To be as consistent as he is.
Yeah.
I've got to watch a little bit of it, and their palates and their flavor profiles are pretty amazing right now.
Yeah.
And everyone's trying to catch up. So,
yeah.
Man, this is a fun question.
Maybe for you. I don't know what it is yet.
You talked about the pits and Jamie. I think that this is, have you always cooked on Jambos in competition?
No, I started off with the Lang, and the first time I laid my eyes on a Jambo was at my second barbecue contest, which happened to be in my hometown, and I was up with all the stick burners that night while I don't think anybody was really cooking on drums that much on the East Coast at that time, but there was a lot of people cooking on FE 100s, So all the pellet cookers were asleep and all the stick burners were up. And I used to put my meat on earlier back then, and I was up. I'd just meeting these guys, and I take this back. This is the first contest I ever cooked. Anyways, it was chilly, and we were all the stick burners were huddled up and talking, and you know, barbecuers are a friendly group of people. But anyways, they started talking, and they're like, he hadn't even lit his fire yet. And I go, who hadn't lit his fire yet? And they go, Johnny. Johnny hadn't lit his fire yet. I go, who's Johnny? They go, Johnny Trigg. I go, who's Johnny Trigg? And I didn't know. So anyways, they explained to me about Johnny, and I've always been a curious person. I always ask a lot of questions. And so his lights on his RV were off. And about 4:30 in the morning, they popped on. So I walked over there to introduce myself. Well, Johnny, television made Johnny a lot friendlier.
That's the truth.
So anyways, here's this big old Texan in Virginia wondering who's this skinny dude, you know, annoying me at 4:30 in the morning. Anyways, that was the first Jambo I ever saw, and I was like, man, that thing is so pretty. And he ended up, that was my first contest. We got 2 calls. Johnny and Trish took all the Virginia money because they won. They took it back. He walked the same way back then as he does today. You know, he got his knees tucked in a little bit. Anyways, he won that contest, and he had talked to me, and he said that he would sell me that Jambo after the Jack. But then it turned out that he was going to keep it. This is back when Jamie only built 2 pits in the winter, and that was it. So I put together this business plan for my wife, and I rehearsed it, and I wrote it all out, and I type, and I'm a chicken pecker when it comes to typing. So she came on one evening, and I gave her a glass of wine, and then I gave her another. And then I wish I still had a copy of this. So I in this business proposal, it was like all the things that could possibly happen if I could get the Jambo. And she let me get one, and I still have it. It's the grill vet. I got it. Had to go to Texas to get it. But no, I have not always cooked on a Jambo, but I love Jambos.
It's an amazing machine, and it's funny you mentioned the King of the Smoker, and it was the one time that we were out there, and it's 2 in the morning, and I'm cooking on backwoods, but I'm the only one out there in that parking lot, and I was like, what is? Either I'm doing it wrong, or these guys all know something I don't. And then, 6:37, all you guys come out of the hotel.
Well, I'm not quite that hot. I'm not doing it.
No, you were out there. You were out there.
Dad would have been there at 2 and lit the fire at 2 and put the meat on at 3.
And so so I'm sitting there, and these guys all come out, and I'm like, okay, they all got a full night's sleep.
Which is important,
Very important.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's when I made the decision that I was going to learn that I was going to get a Jambo, and I was going to learn how to do this. And first thing that I did was sign up for your class to learn how to run that fire.
I got into barbecue. I started off in a French kitchen, and we started our catering company, and we grew that catering company to a point where we eventually had like 50 full-time employees, and I wasn't cooking anymore. And I got into barbecue as a new culinary activity to reconnect as a cook. And we could do a whole podcast episode just on my love for barbecue and cooking with fire. But I like cooking on all sorts of things. Grills and pits and stoves and campfires and whatever. But being able to play with logs and create airflow and manipulate. It's so funny. I've been cooking a lot recently on the stick burner, and it's like sometimes I'm in the mood for a lot of smoke, and sometimes I'm in the mood for a little bit of smoke. I always say I like to treat smoke like salt and pepper. I want that flavor to be like a seasoning, but with an offset pit, and especially one like Jamie's pits, we can really play with that fire and through airflow clean it up, make it a little smoky, and I got stories to tell about where I needed to make it a little more smoky, so Jambos are fun, but you go back to your backwoods thing. A lot of damn kick-ass barbecues come out of those backwoods. Look at Melissa Cookston and what she does in whole hogs with those backwoods. Steve Farron, probably my real mentors in barbecue. I smell smoke. He cooked on backwoods.
I think that's one of the best things about what we do is one of my things that I say all the time is that barbecue is the second American art form next to the blues. And I really believe that. It is inherently something that we do in this country, but there's 10,000 ways to do it and 10,000 different ways to make it taste great. And I think that's what I've gone down your road a little bit in that, I just love cooking. We did Snake River Farms hot dogs on a solo stove last weekend at the campsite, just because why not? We got it here, and take that microwave shelf off the Jambo, lay it right down on there, and people are like, "You gonna cook on that?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's got some nice pecan logs in there. It'd be delicious."
I'm making me. It's not lunch. Guys, getting close to lunch. Making me hungry now.
Let's get back into the questions here. I mean, we could spend a lot of time together. We could do like 5 sets.
Everybody, we're not trying to put you to sleep. So if you need to take a potty break or get some coffee.
So you mentioned that you're French-trained chef. One of the questions I ask is, what is your background? How does your background help you for competitions? What sort of stuff from being trained in that manner has helped you in the competition world?
First of all, Chef Alain lives about 200 yards from where we sit. And initially I worked for Chef Alain for free. And then I worked my way up to his partner and the sous chef. And then he ended up working at my catering company for 10 years. And Chef Alain's just a really brilliant chef. And, I started working for him when I got out of the Marine Corps. So the discipline from Marine Corps and discipline into his kitchen, they were just the same.
Yeah.
And so he taught me a lot of great things. But barbecue's funny. And a lot of times you can pull into a contest and there'll be a chef in their jacket and their hat, and they don't always fare that well. When I got into competition barbecue and barbecue as a whole, and I got, for me, like where I'm at, I like cooking barbecue. I love competition barbecue. I like the people that I'm friends with in competition barbecue, but I also just like cooking barbecue for people to eat and that whole process. And it's a little more relaxed in some respects, but some of the thoughts that I had when I got into competition barbecue and barbecue was, man, I bet demi-glace is really good on flank steak, or brisket, excuse me. I think demi-glace would be really good on brisket, or white truffle salt would be really good on brisket. But what I learned is, don't take that to a barbecue contest. So I had to back up a little bit. I had to kind of back up and say, all right, I coined this phrase, stereotypical expected flavors of barbecue. And those tastes, those flavors are things like the meat, smoke, salt, pepper, acidity, onion, garlic, paprika, maybe a little cumin, maybe vinegar, maybe sweet, depending on where you're at. But there's those kind of smoke for sure. Mm-hmm. There's those tastes that people are expecting to taste when you serve them barbecue, and so it's not demi-glace and it's not white truffle salt, although those tastes would be very good, and it's probably not cilantro, because cilantro is a very polarizing flavor. So I had to back up, shut up, listen, and learn that. And then as I got better, and I ruined so much meat initially, and that's a whole nother story. But I made so much bad barbecue, and I might make it again next week. But because texture is so important to barbecue, and that's a lesson you got to learn and figure out. And there's so many. I was so blown away by barbecue because it's like I could make sushi and I could temper chocolate and I could do all these hard to pronounce, expensive foods to buy. And I'm like, man, I'm gonna get a barbecue pit and get some wood and get some pork butts, make a rub and fire it up, and I must have ruined 80 pounds of butts. And it was so humbling, but I fell in love with it. But anyways, I think to answer your question, over time, once I kind of backed up and listened and learned, then I was able to later come in and or apply some of my lessons learned in strict kitchens to the process of making barbecue. And so that's helped me. But it didn't help me to start. It got in the way to start, and I had to just back up. I love it, man. It's like I mean, I just cooked yesterday on my rig right outside this wall here, and I cooked whole chickens, and probably everybody that's listening right now, we can all relate. I mean, y'all can't. Luke and I are doing this face to face. We're not doing this via the telephone right now, and so it's like it's such an easy way to nod and say, yep. We all are in love with this process of cooking with fire and taking the tough cuts of meat. This, I always say, this isn't the food that the rich people got. This was like the poor person food. It was like the tough cuts of meat. It wasn't the fillets, it wasn't the tenderloins. It was the tough cuts of meat. It was briskets and shoulders and ribs and these foods that we got to cook for hours and hours to get to the succulent tenderness and not have it be too smoky. And I don't know, man. It's like it's.
I think you said it best earlier when you said it's therapy.
Yeah.
Because I feel the same way. It's when I'm putting meat in the old hickory for cooking for a vending or for an event or something, that's one thing, but sitting there in the morning when it's sun's coming up and put the brisket on it, there's just something religious about it almost.
You think about it, no one's waiting for a letter in the mail much anymore. It's a text, it's a tweet, it's a post. Everything's so fast, smartphones have replaced encyclopedias. There's this, but barbecue is one of these activities, these processes, these methods of cooking that it's not fast, and so just sit back for a moment, take a breath, have a iced tea, have a bourbon, have a beer, and build a fire and cook some meat and enjoy that process.
That's a great analogy for just slowing it down.
Yeah.
And slowing down life basically is, and I think that's what's great about barbecue, especially just cooking. And when you don't have to cook a competition, you're right, trying to figure that all out. There's a lot to be said for just making a fire and cooking some meat. Just that's great stuff.
Yeah.
So we like to talk about successes. One of my favorite things to talk about is failures. Do you have any favorite failures of yours during a competition where that really guided you going forward?
Yeah, it's so amazing to me that what was so awful at the time that it happened ended up, and it took me time to realize it. What was the worst thing at the time ended up being probably the best thing that might have happened to me in barbecue. And that was in Lakeland, Florida, when I got disqualified. They had actually accepted my box, and I was actually doing an interview, and it was like 47 minutes after 1:30, so it was like, what was that, 2:17, something like that.
Yeah.
My dad kept calling me, and I was doing an interview, and I was like, man, after he did it like 3 times, I was like, I'm sorry, this must be important. So I went to the site, and the reps were there, and they were telling me I was late for a brisket. My dad and I were devastated, and we went to the awards, and we pulled a first, a second, and a fourth in the other 3 categories. We could have been last in brisket had we not been disqualified and still won the contest. It was so funny, Luke. We were driving back on Sunday. We were so devastated. We were driving back on Sunday. I get a phone call, and it's Mike Richter. He says, Tuffy, did I just see you driving south on 95? I said, no, I'm driving home, Mike. He said, man, I'm sure I saw your rig. Well, we had just stopped to get fuel, and I got back on the freeway and was going south and not north. Thank goodness he saw me. But we were just so devastated by that whole experience. So I, talk about being a chef and what skill. I can build a pretty box, and I can do it swiftly. And so I always felt like it was really important to get meat to the judges that was hot. And chicken, when that gets turned in, that just goes right on in. But as you get deeper into the categories, they start sorting these boxes. And so I always was like trying to make sure that my brisket was hot. And anyways, it was such a, I wish I'd had a GoPro on my hat running that box, because I had to scale a wall to get, anyways, there was all this stuff. But the real truth is your food needs to eat well cold. And So initially after that happened, I started turning in way too soon because I never wanted that to happen again. But what I learned through that process, Luke, and actually Steve Farron shared it with me, and he was such a great mentor. But anyways, when I started to slow down a little bit and really take my time and really scrutinize all the food that I had cooked that day and put that properly in the box. And we'd been Team of the Year before that incident, but the success good fortune that we were able to have later down the road, and it wasn't immediate. It was a process. But I learned through slowing it down and giving myself more space to do the job properly and not be rushed, which meant starting that process of building that box sooner. So what ended up being like a really bad day ended up being, in the long run, a really wonderful thing.
You're always teaching. We had a conversation, Kim and I had a conversation last night about how when it's turn-in time in the trailer that I am super time obsessed. I always am. If I'm not 10 minutes early for something, then I've lost. Like, that's just the way that I'm built. And when it comes to turn-in times, I become super focused on that number on the wall and not super focused on my taste or my tenderness. And we literally had a conversation about this last night. I was like, you know what? I think I need to just, number one, relax. Number two, be conscious of the time, but don't let it run my life at that point, and let my mouth and my smell and everything else that I need to make those turns.
That's where for me I got better. When I gave myself more breathing room and really focused on this process versus that clock, knowing that I was going to have plenty of time because I gave myself plenty of time, I had some good days.
Always teaching. You're always teaching. So recently I had the opportunity to do these hour workshops with high school kids at a governor's school.
That's
and
awesome.
About being a pitmaster both on the catering side and in the competition side. And one of the first things I told them is, like, one of your keys to success is having everything that you need right in front of you, so you're not running around looking for it. It's all there. Your mise en place.
Well, I was just waiting
right
to say,
there.
So that's mise en place, to have everything in its place, to be organized is super, super, super important. And that's one of the things that Chef Alain taught me to do really well, was to be organized.
Well, and it's one of the things that you taught me to do very well. And it's still, especially to this day, when I go cook and I'm by myself, especially then. Like, foil is all torn and ready to go, and everything's in its place in the morning. But it makes you so that your brain's clear.
Yep.
And I was trying to tell these kids, like, this applies not just to barbecue.
Everything.
Everything, your job,
that's right.
Schoolwork. Make sure you have everything that you need to be successful right in front of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said like 3 things today that just take me back to your class, and I'm like...
I had an old friend, he used to say, plan your work and work your plan. It's like the folks that are out there on the circuit every weekend, it becomes like a muscle memory. Mm-hmm. It's like, those processes, you don't even have to think about it. My processes are it was so interesting, teaching with Melissa a couple weeks back. It was the first time I'd done a class since Dad had passed, so that was a little strange. But and I brought a good friend of mine who helps me with a lot of the stuff, but I hadn't done the competition stuff in over a year. But yet my processes have been the same for so long. I mean, there's changes, but not big changes. That even when I don't do it very often, it's still there. But I think that if you had randomness and you didn't have a process and you didn't have your mise en place together, then it'd probably be more challenging. There was he's still alive. Music City Pig Pals, Ali McWright. We were cooking in Lakeland, Florida one time, and he said, "Tuffy, what time are you going to light your pit?" It's like, well, and he goes, "Well's not an answer." And I was like, man, I got his point right then and there, and I went and sat. I was cooking back then. I was cooking under an easy up tent, and I went and sat down in a chair, and I wrote down my cook schedule from what I was going to start doing first thing on Friday till brisket turn in on Saturday. And I became real list driven after that, and it's so much better. I tell people all the time, it's like, review your cook on the way home. We could win a contest and we're still reviewing our cook, because even if we won it, there were still things that we could have done better. And there's no better time to review that cook than when it's still fresh in your memory.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things that barbecue has taught me, is because before I did all this, not time sensitive, disorganized, no lists, I'll remember it, and now it's, I lay in bed at night on Friday night and I review the entire timeline for the next day so that it's there, and then I'll look at it 100 times the next day. And
now with devices, we can put our whole cook schedule into our phones with alarms and not even have to think about it. But you're talking about the whole aluminum foil being done before you go to bed. You don't need it until the next morning. But that's one thing that we can do in advance that doesn't hurt the quality of anything. It's like, we don't want to season our meat too soon, and we don't want to light our fire too soon, and we don't want to do things that impact our product in a negative way too soon. But anything that we can do, like folding of aluminum foil or getting your chimney with your charcoal and your newspaper ready, those kind of things, why not? It's one less thing we have to think about or do when things start to get busy.
Yeah. And that's, again, I keep coming back to it. That's one thing I learned from you, and it's made me a lot better cook because of that. And Kim sees it on Friday or Saturday morning. She sees the look on my face. She sees the foil, and she knows, like, now's not the time to talk about anything else but this, because I've cleared the deck.
Yeah. Well, and that's right. It's like, if you compete like probably you and I do and others, the mental focus that we put into trying to hit our marks can be, there's a lot of pressure that can be, pressure, I don't know what the word is, but if we can find these moments where we can have like a mental vacation or rest during the process, different places within our cook, it helps for the next steps. We talked earlier about rest being important. Rest is so important. If you stay up all night long and you got smoke in your face and maybe you had a couple of beers too many, I don't know if you're going to cook as well as if you had been rested, didn't have your face in the smoke the whole time, and were maybe, drinking some water too. But, these little places where I find, once all my prep is done on Friday, I got a little mental downtime, sleep, mental downtime, get the fire going, the meats are on. There's different places, because once we get to about chicken time, there's no downtime until after briskets.
Right, you're going the whole time. Would you say your good luck walk is also one of those? Help clear the...
Yeah, but what I also learned is I had to, just like that lesson I learned in Lakeland, Florida, I've learned that I need to be smart when I start my good luck walk, because I have gone around and I'm like, if there's 35 teams there, I feel bad if I only went to 32. And so what I found myself doing is so silly. I was like going around, all right, got 3 more to go. Well, my chicken needs to get turned on or put on the smoker. So I had a couple of times where chicken didn't get put on the smoker at the right time because I didn't start the walk soon enough. So because I always used to, anyways. I always hear Chris Capel's boys saying it. I don't know if it was the first time that I ever heard it or not, but better to be looking at it than looking for it. And so that's just been one of these things that just always sticks with me, and I say it all the time, and I use it as a strategy all the time. But so if you decide you want to go do good luck walks and wish everybody good luck, just do it at the right time.
That's great advice. We're going to get into my favorite part of this interview here in a minute, the rapid fire questions. But I have one more big one to ask you. What do you think separates a good pitmaster from a great pitmaster?
Golly, there's so many things that come to my head after that, but I think it's all in how you handle catastrophes, or how you handle things that there are so many. I feel weird using this as an example because it's myself, but in 2013 we were cooking the Royal. And I always look at the weather. I always know what the weather is going to be doing, because some of my cooking processes are impacted by the ambient temperature and the wind and those kind of things. And I told my dad, I was like, all right, I want you to run the fire 300 to 315 degrees because it's going to be cold down here by the creek in the holler. And I knew it was going to put a challenge for the whole field that day. But I was running my pit about 25, 30 degrees hotter. Sometimes I'll do that for like the first hour. But I was like, we're doing this the whole way. And my big cuts, my pork and my brisket usually come off about 9:30, 10-ish in the morning. I had one brisket ride until noon. And at the Jack, you got to cook dark meat and white meat, turn in dark meat and white meat, and I do. And so the way I cook, I end up having 3 pans of chicken in my cooker, but I had to put my chicken breast meat in a pan on top of the briskets because they were still rolling. When it came to building the rib box, and I had 4 racks of ribs to choose from, they were tight, they were tough. Even though I'd been running a hotter fire, they were tough. So I had to sort through 4 racks of ribs to find tender bones. And the presentation wasn't great because I wasn't able to get,
right.
4 bones in a row or 5 bones in a row. And I just was picking through all those bones. And so all the ribs that were still left on the table, my teammates, and everybody that was at our cook site, they were eating the ribs. And everybody said, man, the ribs are tough, the ribs are tough. And I said, well, I think the ribs that I put in the box were tender. And I think we got like a 4th place rib call. But so maybe the short answer to your question is experience, time. I had not cooked a lot of brisket when I first got into barbecue. I'd cooked a lot of things in my life, but not brisket. And so there's so many things to barbecue's like baking a cake or baking cookies in this respect. When you bake a cake recipe multiple times, you'll get to the point where if you cook it enough, you'll get to the point where you can tell by the smell in the kitchen it's time to go take a peek in the oven. You open that door and you can look and say it's not time to touch it with my fingers yet. But so you get these nuances down, and so barbecue and cooking with fire and these tough cuts of meat, you and I both know there's a lot of things that we can repeat. And it takes experience and doing this many times to get to that level of comfortability and knowledge with that. And ribs, for example, I mean, that sweet spot where ribs finally get to the point where they're tender, but they're not mealy, and there's just so many nuances. So I think it's probably time at the fire, but being able to make those adjustments. And it doesn't have to just be in competition barbecue. I mean, I was doing a plate of dinner one time for 3,100 people, 3-course meal, and we had 260 some people working the event. We had 88 chefs plating this food, and I'd had all these ovens brought down from Washington D.C. that we had rented, and they were all in this loading dock of this big sports arena, and there was like this big wind tunnel that was blowing through there, and it kept blowing all the pilots out on the ovens, and it kept going out, and I was like, this is so stressful. And you could hear the roar of the 3,100 people inside the building, and I ended up having to cook all of this food on the stove tops of these ovens on sheet pans, and I got it all cooked, and we made it through there, and people couldn't believe that food was hot for that many people. But I think it's probably just getting to the experience level where we can make adjustments on the fly, or I don't know if that's the right answer or not, but that's what I got.
No, it is, and it's, I tell people all the time, they were like, what was your turning point? And mine was cooking. I mean, just, you have to know what can go wrong, and you have to know how to address it. You can have 10 briskets up there, and they're all 10 going to cook different. Yeah,
absolutely.
Animals are just like people; they're all different. So
these chickens I was cooking on Sunday, I think I cooked 12 cookings. I think I cooked 12 chicken yesterday, whole 3.5 pound birds, and almost every one of them came off at a different time.
Yep, and that's what makes barbecue fun, because it's going to be different every time.
Yeah.
All right, man.
Rapid fire. I'm nervous.
The rapid fire is good.
I'm a little scared.
I asked you literally 10 questions, so we're going to have to do a part 2 of this at some point down the road because
Okay.
I've got a bunch more. But
right.
what a great conversation, a great interview. So I love this one.
Yeah, you look in your eyes.
What do you see about barbecue on social media that bothers you?
I don't probably watch that part of it as much as some of my friends do. I don't like it when there's a lot of beating up on the organization of Competition Barbecue, and in this case I'll probably speak more specifically to Kansas City Barbecue Society. Kansas City Barbecue Society is a nonprofit organization, and its leadership are hardworking volunteers that give their time to try and help this organization. And if you've ever been involved with any kind of board, there, my mom used to have this saying that it takes all types to make the world go round, and so there's lots of opinions, and when you get this collective group of people together, I guess I want everybody to share and offer input to help our organization, because I think anybody that whether you're a judge or a rep or a cook or an organizer, we'd all like to see Competition Barbecue continue to thrive. So I guess I don't like it when there's criticism without maybe offering, maybe a better way of doing it. So I think all of us just being careful or polite as to how we communicate those kind of things, that's probably something. And there's a lot of beautiful people out there that are so hardworking and have so many great points of view. And so for the most part, I see polite, ladies and gentlemen sharing input in really healthy ways. But if ever I see it and it seems to not be in a healthy way, that bothers me a little bit.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. Do you have a favorite pre, during, or post-competition meal?
Oh man, this is gonna make me a little emotional.
Oh no.
My dad and I, when I had this C-Class motorhome, and we would drive back from a competition, and we would miss breakfast on Saturday, and we'd miss lunch on Saturday, and then we would have to clean up and get everything loaded on the RV, and then I would have to drive, and Dad would make us a brisket sandwich from the leftover briskets with Duke's mayonnaise and some bread. That's it.
Wow. I'm sorry, man.
That's all right. Good thing it's not television.
You know what? It's a great way to remember. And I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's good. He's up in heaven smiling.
He is. You're wearing your Duke's mayonnaise t-shirt. What is your favorite present that you like to give to people?
Oh man, it's probably a cooking tool that I really am fond of. So like, there's a grinder that I really like. That's a spice grinder that I will gift to people from time to time. And then there's this carbon steel Japanese butcher knife that I'm quite fond of, and so I've gifted that out before. I like all the pots that I used to warm my sauces in Competition Barbecue. They were all my mom's. I like to cook with things that belong to somebody that I knew or know, and so to be able to give somebody like a knife or a pepper grinder, maybe they'll think about me when they use it. So I think giving some tools that I really feel like are very useful and something that you can use all the time and well made.
That's better than my preferred gift of underwear. So, what do you think are the biggest misconceptions about you? There really can't be too many though, because you're on the sleeve.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't think there are any, to be honest.
I don't know. I don't know if there are. Just reach out to Luke and he'll run it by me. I don't. Oh, I got one. Never trust a skinny chef.
There is one. There we go. Never trust a skinny chef. All right. If you could have a giant billboard anywhere with anything on it, getting a message out to millions and billions of people, what would it say and why?
And I don't know if this is a Weber thing or not, but I think it could be one of their taglines: "Slow down and grill," or "Slow down and cook." I don't know. I think The passions of the table, the pleasures of the table, it's like I grew up in an age where we had Sunday supper at the table, the whole family. Mm-hmm. And I think life's gotten really, really busy, and we just, you get taking your kids to baseball or soccer, or there's the hell, we can't even get away from work anymore because usually a source to our email and responsibilities is in our front pocket. So I don't know. I just think slowing down and keep on smoking. I like to sign when I sign a book for somebody, I always put on there keep on smoking. But I think some kind of messaging that would invite people to cook and enjoy that process of having meals together. And I'd have to wordsmith it a little bit, but that would be the gist of it. And I don't care whether you're at your grill or your smoker or your stove, just celebrating some relationships and family time, over some good food. Yeah. Luke, you and a lot of your good buddies, one of the things that I get to see and that y'all do so much better than my dad and I did is the fellowship of getting to these, you talked about cooking the Snake River Farms hot dogs over the solo stove, but just that camaraderie and that fellowship and that friendship, whether it be with our family or just our friends, I think that's really important thing that we need to try and keep around, and not just get swallowed up by our iPhones.
And it's one of those things I think that's changed a lot in competition barbecue, even since I've been involved. It used to be everybody got there Thursday, stayed till Sunday. There was always a potluck and stuff.
Yeah.
And, I think we've gone down this road of everybody just hiding in their trailer and doing what they want to do. And so we've kind of made it our mission in these past couple of years, especially with COVID and everything, and doing it safely, but still trying to bring people together and have make sure that have a good time. Darren was the one that taught me.
Darren and Sherry are great examples of bringing the fun and the friendship into, it's like I like it when they at the Royal when they do the fried pork tenderloin sandwiches for everybody. I mean,
I've been fired from that operation 3 times already. I'm now in the hospitality department of that event.
But you're right, and it has been a change. So many, when I got into competition barbecue, I've met so many amazing people like you have as well, and there was always a large population of people there. There were some people that were really focused on trying to win, but there was a really large group of people there that just were there for the fun and the fellowship and the food and the libations, and there's still some of those. It's probably just more competitive today than it once was, and a little more serious than it once was.
Well, I mean, I think back to my very first event, it was Barbecue Jamboree in Fredericksburg. I think you guys filmed Pitmasters there that year. Yeah. We were taken in by Jerry Dyer from JD Smoking Misfits, Mike Palmer, Mike Richter. Yeah. You mentioned him earlier, and that was when we knew that we were around good people and on to something fun. So great, Tuffy. Well, I just want to thank you again for taking some time today, buddy. I really appreciate it.
Luke, I appreciate it, and I was a little scared of these rapid fire questions, but I'll be happy to do your show again. I don't know how long your list is of rapid fires. There might be some further down that make me a little more nervous.
We're good. But yeah, we can do a round 2 at some point. So. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Luke.
Thank you for listening to Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast. Be sure to subscribe and like the podcast, rate the podcast, and share it out with all your friends. Also, be sure to check out the Old Virginia Smoke YouTube channel as well. We will have another episode for you next week. For companies interested in advertising, please contact Old Virginia Smoke directly via www.oldvirginiasmoke.com. Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast, is edited by Chris Sedenka. Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast, is a property of Old Virginia Smoke, LLC. All rights reserved. Copyright 2021.
OVS, Old Virginia Smoke.